go,
Yeah,
and then they
I
go
love
like
the.
that, you know?
Are we live? Are
Here
we
we
are we
go.
live? I know we're already live. Are we live, Eddie?
Never know. What's up, profitable stylist? What's going on? We're coming at you this week with the history of the most iconic haircut of all time for women. What's up, Bernard? Good morning.
Well, you're not going to say what haircut it is. You just
Nope,
leave
you
it
gotta
hanging
guess.
like that.
Gotta guess. What is that
Say it.
called? Cliffhanger, like a cliffhanger in the
Yeah.
episodes. You know, wait till
Only
next
you don't
week.
pronounce the G in hanger. So it's the bob, guys. The bob. Who thought a bob haircut was just any short haircut? We started doing a little research. I thought I knew the bob, but I know some interesting history and facts about the bob haircut. And then I started doing research and find out basically a bob is any short haircut. I mean, that's a very loose definition, right? Just anything above the shoulders, it appears. I don't know if it's because Bob, well, Eddie's going to give you more details later. But guys, um, well, you know what? I think there's a good time to bring Shanna on. Shanna is in the studio. Can you jump in this chair?
I can with my broken ankle.
Yeah, we've
Hey
got.
guys,
What's up, Shanna?
what's up, Eddie? I'm so glad to be back, man.
It's great to see you.
Thank you.
So this is the reason I have this live audience behind us today.
Oh,
Look, they're all cheering right now. Maybe, can I get some cheering in the back? Maybe
yeah,
they're
right.
not live audience, but I got kicked out of the studio for Shanna because she's coming in to record today. What are you recording
Oh,
today?
what you recording?
I'm so excited, you guys. I'm bringing to you the Stylist, Hair Loss 101, how to help your client that hair is starting to thin with empathy, and from empathy comes money. The second video I'm teaching is Trichotilla what? So trichotillomania is a
Trichotilla what?
huge thing that stylists don't know about, don't know how to deal with, don't know what to say. Again, another community, we're all empaths, that you could be helping as well as helping yourself, right? Financially. And then the last class I'm teaching today is the business of long hair bonding. Those of you who've taken the long hair bonding course, thank you so much. But I get a lot of questions about the business of it. A technique is not all you need to be successful, right? So I'm going to break down the manual of the business aspect of it, the secrets, the ins and outs, and how I made it really easy. And in 6 years, went from 85,000 to 1.5 million. And I'm not behind the chair any longer. I'm 54 and semi-retired. So let me teach you guys how to do that. That's what I'm doing today.
That is so cool. That is so cool.
My favorite word in this whole thing is trichotillomania.
You know how long it took me to learn how to say that? Most people just say trick.
Yeah, they do. They do say trick.
Yep.
I think a lot of people might not even know what that is.
A lot of people don't.
Quick
Yeah,
what
I'd
that
love
is.
to. So trichotillomania is a body repetitive focus behavior. And it usually starts between 9 and 14. People start pulling their hair, their eyelashes. There's many, many aspects to it, but
Right.
people
That's a
will
more
come
common
in,
one.
right? And your people will come in and they'll have a bald spot or the top or whatever. And that's what trichotillomania is. And I'm going to teach you guys how to handle that psychologically and through service.
Kind of in a trance, kind of like almost like a meditative state.
Yeah.
A person will just be sitting there pulling their hair out.
Mhm.
But it also moves to eyebrows, eyelashes, sometimes body hair.
And they don't realize they're doing it.
No, they don't.
No.
And so what she's going to be teaching today is talking a little bit about it, and then a little bit about something new to me called interruption therapy.
Yeah.
But I won't give it all away. She's
Right.
going to have that in a class to sell and help teach.
I sent one of my interruption therapy, which is kind of how we got got acquainted, here to your studio
That's right.
to take care of our Tulane students. So
That's right.
I'm grateful
That's
that helped us get.
All right. So go
I
ahead.
gotta go, man.
All right,
I
go
gotta
go shoot.
Peace out, you guys. See you
Go
later.
shoot.
Good to see you, Shanna.
Home door. There you go.
All right. Well, so now we're gonna go. So how we're gonna do today? We're gonna break it down decade by decade by decade, and that's how we're gonna run it. The bob. So the bob haircut originated.
In a little closer. Is that gonna mess you up? Hey guys.
I'll adjust it
Shanna,
if I have to.
Shanna, we'll have it in the description below. The Profitable Stylist Academy is where you can find all of her training videos. and the one she's doing now will probably be ready somewhere in 4 to 6 weeks after editing. Just wanted to throw that out there real quick.
Okay. So then, yeah, the bob haircut is originated in the. It just means short hair. Everybody thinks of it as that chin length haircut, but it really originated. It just means short hair. The most notable person in history is Joan of Arc. That's how
Yes.
everybody knows the bob haircut as. So that's something really powerful to think about. Now,
You know why Joan of Arc cut her hair, right? So Joan of Arc, I
Mm,
mean, I don't think a lot of people saw the movie or even clips of the video. And one of the things that brought it back to life for me was I was in a cutting class one time, and Scott Cole from Paul Mitchell. I mean, he's married to Linda Yodici. You know, when you get famous like that, you each have your own last name because you don't because people knew you before you got married. So he said, in our house we have no children, so our kitchen table is a as this has a bunch of heads with hair on it. We eat in front of the TV when we're watching movies. He said, and I was watching Joan of Arc, which basically she was got inspired, starts grabbing hair, cutting chunks of hair off because wants to go into war, and only men could go to war. So a lot of things in history were man or men based, and so ladies would try to look like a man to do a man's thing sometimes, and the shorter haircut was one of them. But I always thought it was interesting. That's what kind of brought me into the history of the short hair was when Scott said he had to pause that movie and he went to the kitchen table and started. He was Sassoon trained, which I know you're going to talk about in a minute. And everything was so precise and precision and perfectly even on both sides. And he said when she just started grabbing hair and cutting it, it really freaked him out a little bit on the inside. He said at first it was like, no, this is so wrong. But at the same time, he's like, maybe I need to break out of this mold and try just some messy, messed up, unorganized cutting. And so it was a really fun class because we did a little bit of both. But I digress just a little bit. Let's get back onto the bob haircut. I always thought the bob was just, that's what they taught us in school, one length, right above the shoulders, two about the ears. And after it started getting layered, shingled, feathered, whatever you wanted to call it, I just thought it was a short haircut. I didn't realize the definition you have
yeah.
of the bob.
It has so many iterations of it. And that's why we got to go through the history because it's really fascinating when you think about it. So the main reference, like you was just talking about, is way back when women would literally cut their hair off to pretend like they would bandage down their chest to flatten themselves out so they can appear to be like a man, and then they can go fight in battle. So that's the way out there original origins of it.
Right.
But in the turn of our lifetime now, so in the past 100 years, 120 years, from the 1900s, that's when we've really started tracking the progression of the bob over the decades and how much of an impact it's had on every single decade, which is fascinating how one haircut can go through so many iterations every 10 years.
Well, let's go back a tiny bit more. Women were, first of all, didn't have the same rights as men. So women were known for their long hair. Men wanted their women to have long hair, so it was all long and straight. And so part of women's movements to have more equal rights was, I want to have the hair I want, just like you get to have the hair you want. I don't want to be chaperoned down the street. I want to be able to vote. I want to be able to do. So a lot of it was part of the feminine women trying to be more equal to men, rightfully so. And so the bob haircut is just one of the things along the journey. And it seems like it all started, as far as we can tell, around 1909 or 1910, right?
Yeah.
And I think women just, because their hair was just long and straight, the most they would do was their own hair, maybe each other's friends' hair, but there was no salon. So there was only barbershops, right? So when you go to pay to get a haircut, it was a man going into a barbershop to get a haircut. There was no cosmetologist of the day. So when the bob first started off, it was barbers, right? It was men, mostly men cutters, hair cutters, barbers, whatever you want to call them, cutting the lady's hair. And it got so freaking popular. There were lines out of the barbershop to do it. But I'm going a little too far ahead now. So where did it all kind of start in 1910?
So this is how it goes. Historically speaking, the symbol of long hair was a sign of wealth. And if you shamed or if you had to redeem yourself, if you were punished, they would force you to cut your hair. And
Saw
then
that in Game of Thrones.
you saw that in the Game of Thrones, right? Thank you, Game of Thrones, for history lessons. But now in the 1900s, women, primarily from Russia, would start chopping their hair. Like intellectual women that were trying to escape out of the Iron Curtain would chop off their hair to pretend to look like a guy, so the secret police wouldn't find them, and they would start leaving and going into Europe. Now, in Europe, specifically France, in 1909, I'm going to read this because I got a bunch of notes so I don't get this wrong. It was as a Polish-born hairdresser. He was known as Monsieur Antoine. Am I pronouncing that
Yep.
right?
Or Antoine.
And he started cutting the bob haircut, and
Yeah.
he was citing the Joan of Arc was his inspiration, because all these women were hacking their hair off and just, they were doing it themselves. They were just pulling it in a ponytail and lopping it off, and that was it. So he started cleaning it up and really doing it as a proper service, and that's where it originally. 1909 is like the first recorded professional haircut that we can find.
Right.
So then it wasn't till the 1910s, so right around World War One, or right before World War One, there was a famous ballroom dancer and actress, Irene Castle, and she really commercialized the popularity. Like, she was the first celebrity of the bob haircut, because for her it was just convenient to have short hair. But a friend of hers, she was going out to some party, something or other, and her friend convinced her to just wear it out short too, not to put a wig on, or not to somehow style it to make it look longer. And that just became known as the Castle Bob, and that ruled for a decade on its own.
That was the first name of the bob, the Castle Bob.
The Castle Bob.
I've heard of it before, but didn't know where that originated. 1910 too. Wow, that's way back.
So then World War One comes along, and a lot of women start adopting the Castle Bob because there was such a shortage of manpower back then, that women started taking on secretarial roles, nursing roles. They look
like
at that.
this.
That is so cool. That is so cool.
I'm glad you think so.
Look, man, I like history. I like historical things, man.
But I don't know what it is about the first bob that looked a little better. That started becoming kind of graduated in the back, and I like the graduated. My favorite haircut of all time is a bob, but it's A-line bob, where
The
it's
A-line
graduated
bob, yeah.
long in the front, and that didn't come until the more recent couple of decades. But it's kind of crazy that the bob, starts in 1910, and I would have to say it's probably the first style cut that's still around today, and every freaking version that it's ever been in is still around.
Over 100 years and running.
Yeah.
Ain't that something? So then, yeah, now you start getting into after World War One. So now you got the 1920s. And so the war is over. History, or society, is trying to go backwards in history. And they're trying to say, okay, ladies, thank you for all your help. Now go back home. And women were like, hey, now, hold on. Who do you think was doing one of my favorite posters to this day, and I don't know the reference of it, but it's a World War One poster. The lady with she's wearing the bandana, and she's got the short sleeve with the rolled up sleeve. She got the muscle. Yeah. I have always loved that poster before, I don't know. I think that poster was so cool. I've always thought that poster was so cool. So yeah, women started doing mechanic work. They started doing, all heavy lifting and heavy labor, manual labor and stuff like that. They're like, no, we're not going home. We're staying out.
Right.
we've been helping out. We paid our dues. We proved ourselves. So now the castle bob gets adjusted a little bit, and in the 20s, you know, like the roaring 20s as it's known as, you got what became known as the flapper girls. So girls started wearing shorter dresses. They started wearing they modified their haircut. They grew the length a little bit longer, but now they got, that's how they got the V point in the back. So it wasn't just so trimmed and tugged and tight and neat around the head, you know.
Girls, yeah.
They started smoking like those long cigarettes.
Yeah.
What is that extension thing, you know, for the cigarettes?
Keep their hands clean and keep the smoke away from your body,
Keep
so
the
you don't
smoke away.
smell as much.
I mean,
That's where the smoker's jacket comes from too. You know, you used to wear like a robe, but it was a smoker's jacket.
so
When you
cool.
smoke, the smoke would just stink up the jacket, and then you could take it off and not smell like smoke. I wish some of my stylists would wear a smoker's jacket when they went outside to smoke. Or anybody. I mean, you know, I'm not judging the smoking as much as the smell is so offensive. But again, let's get back on the bob. Then
so,
the 1930s. So what? It's funny because it was that 1920s after the World War had a point in the back, and then it reverses where the point goes upside down for that longer length on the sides eventually. But this was my favorite one to read, was in the 1930s. I'm not super good at knowing who's who, but this is probably one of the famous girls I'm getting ready to mention, because they don't say which one she is. I'm not that good at my history, you know, but I felt like I was singing either a Madonna song or one of those other singers that names all the great actresses and actors of the past. Because you see, they name Jean or John, I don't know, Jean Harlow, Marlene Dietrich, Greta Garbo, Betty Davis, Joan Crawford. I mean, Ginger Rogers. We know these names mostly from modern songs. A lot of people don't know their history, but that started to be the girls in the movies then in the 1930s. So that was a look that you see in a lot of older movies, and they made that like the
love
sexy,
it, man.
I do start to like it there. The sexy girl haircut, a little bit more cleavage. The makeup is getting more refined. The lips are coming out. They didn't really focus on, I don't know, making it as sexy at first. It used to just be shorter hair so they could fit in and have the rights of a man. Now they start to turn it into an attractive look, not just like us ugly men. They started trying to make it appealing, and some men started to like women with short hair as well as medium or long hair, and it became okay just to have it anywhere along the way. And then when it came to the 1950s, this one really was surprised. I'm going to zoom in on this one here, because to me, I was like, that is not
the page boy.
a bob, but they still call it a bob. You know, I didn't realize that history considered all these short haircuts a bob. I mean, I can see why they call it a page boy, but where's page come from? I don't know. I mean, that is more a boy cut than anything. So now that we're getting so short, I want to throw in a little history lesson I learned from Nicholas French on stage one time. He was talking about some history, and he said, do you know where the name bobby pin came from? The name bobby pin. Now I think some of you guys are probably figuring it out, but every girl has used a bobby pin for a dance or a prom or whatever dance you've gone to. And it makes sense when you're talking about bobs and bobby pins all at the same time. But this again was when you wanted to take your hair, curl it under, and use a bobby pin or a pin to make your hair temporarily, so you could get away as looking like a bob or a man or a boy short term. Just really, I hate that I'm still doing air quotes. Trying to quit doing it. I do this all the time. That's one of my things. I'm like, just slap me if you see me do this, okay? I'm going to get slapped a few times today. But the bobby pin was to look like you had a bob temporarily, and then you could go right back to the long hair. So now you get the page boy, which apparently history calls a bob still.
Well,
Tell me
again,
a little bit about the page.
A bob is a short haircut. Doesn't mean it has to be that specific length. It just means a short haircut. So it's interesting. So the page boy was really more of hold on, let me pull it up here. So Doris Day, Audrey Hepburn, those are a couple of the famous names. This is really when in history the women's movement really started coming around, and they really started fighting to say we don't need to be chaperoned no more. We don't, we get to vote, we get to drive, we get to do things independently without supervision, right?
Then the 1960s come, and this is what has really still strongly has shaped what we do today. Vidal Sassoon comes along.
So the 60s is the hippies. That's the hippie movement. Everybody starts growing their hair and peace and love and rock and roll starts getting big. When was Elvis? That was the 50s and 60s, right?
I don't know. I just watched the movie, the Elvis movie, and it was amazing. I knew he died kind of young, but he died at 42, and it was kind of fun to see some of this in the movie, but it didn't focus on hair, obviously.
Right.
But it was still, and I didn't remember the years actually, but
somebody helped me out with that. But now in London, you got some hairdresser that nobody knows at the time. His name is Vidal Sassoon. Yeah. He's just a regular guy, right? At the time.
And do you know his father's name?
We have this.
Well, that's okay. I'm just going to say, I think it was interesting that remember when we were working on stage with Nicholas French, his father knew Vidal's father. They were friends. And Vidal was a young man asking Nicholas, I don't know if you ever heard the story, but, Nicholas would talk about these stories. And he said, I remember when Vidal was a young man asking his dad and Nicholas's dad, I'm thinking about going to the U.S. Do you think I should? Looking back, you're like, of course you should. It changed haircutting for all of us so much over here. But it's kind of neat just to hear that backstory of somebody that knew him when he was a kid.
So I just Googled it. His name was Jack. And then I'm like, oh, well, since I can Google that, why don't I just Google when was Elvis Presley? And I was right. It was the 50s and 60s.
Okay. Good.
We have this technology.
He comes along, though, and starts putting a little more precision in the cuts, right?
So that was where the 5-point haircut was born. He really figured out how to commercialize the haircut and give us the 0 elevation, the 45 angle, the 90 degree, the 135, the 180. I mean, he really revolutionized and commercialized everything, because now we were able to have a plan that we can follow, a procedure or a layout, if you will, that we could follow, and we could replicate this consistently time and time again. It wasn't just, just come in and let me figure out how to get your hair short somewhere around here short, and then that's because of that. That's where the A-line bob that you and I both love so much. That's how you were able to get that precision. Yeah, Jackie
Kennedy was inspired by Vidal Sassoon's, and when you put a famous person like that, even though TV was probably still black and white, you saw that haircut, or ladies saw that haircut, and they all wanted to copy her. And then on the other end of the spectrum, I do not know my history well, but I even know the name Twiggy. I don't know the relevance of who Twiggy was. I'm going to get criticized for this, I know, but do you know who Twiggy is?
Yes.
Help me.
No,
who?
I just want you to get made fun of.
Okay, well,
you got to be in the cool kids club to know.
Yeah, and I'm not that cool. But I was like, God, I know these names. I mean, I know that Jackie Kennedy's going to be on TV. Who is Twiggy? Come on.
No, you're not big in music. You're just not big.
I knew it was music, but I didn't know who.
Yeah, so that's what it is. But now, because of Sassoon, we start getting perms and hair color. We start getting modernized services. Like people were now you got the bob. It doesn't women started realizing that because when you have long hair, gravity pulls it down and it just keeps it nice and flat, sleek and smooth. And that was basically it. What other choice do you really have other than you can braid it a little bit? Now that you have the shorter hair, all of a sudden you're starting to get bounce. And then women start realizing, well, then if I can get volume and fullness, how much more volume and fullness can I get? And now we start getting perms, we start getting hair color, we start getting styling done, blow drying, hairspraying. I mean, it was just amazing. And when you start coming into the 70s, they'd start getting modernized that much further. They started inverting the bob. Instead of and that's like the A-line that we're talking about.
This was iconic. This is more the hippie era though.
That was the 70s hippie. Yep.
Getting that feather on the side. Is that the Dorothy Hamill cut?
Dorothy Hamill, and then the most iconic of all, the Farrah Fawcett, haircut. That was more of a shag, but it started from a bob and then started growing out. And as it was growing out, a shag is a grown out bob. I mean, at the end of the day, that's all it is.
And a little thinner at the end, some long layers, right? Once it gets past the shoulders, I think most people would consider it not a bob anymore. It starts to get shaggy, layered, and a few other names. But that Dorothy Hamill, I mean, I remember even at becoming a hairstylist, late into that trend, I would still have the older ladies that were still wearing it saying, "Can you cut my hair into the Dorothy Hamill?" And so I'm like, yes. And I enjoyed feathering those sides. I don't know. I was good at it. I liked doing it. And it's not been around for a while with everybody going really straight. You notice it's starting to come back quite a bit lately where people are wanting to, and hairdressers in school for today's style. That's the sad thing, is usually the styles that happen now were not taught in school because they were teaching the styles that were in school. And then a year or two or three later, the stylists are on the forums. How do I do? Because, we learn how to curl hair under or up, and barely up in the last decade or two, almost all curled under. But to get that feathered flipped back look, it's not under or up. It's kind of down and back. And it's an odd thing to do on one side of the head compared to the other. It's odd on either side, and then it's the opposite of that on the other side. And it took me a minute to get it, I remember, but once you got good at it, it's such a cool look. And then you got to lock it in with hairspray so that it just, because I mean, this girl, she is moving around out there and flipping that head around, and that hair does not move. That was probably the beginning of hairspray.
Well, that's when, and then John just gave us a comment too, which is, he reminded me, during that time, that's what start creating wash and wear hair. So women would actually start blow drying and styling their hair at home. Like, they would still be going into the salon once a week or twice a week or however often they went. But then they would start doing it at home, and they would start touching it up at home too. And then that's where one of my other favorite images is, you always see the lady with all the rollers, and she's got the cigarette, and she's in the bathrobe, She got that smoker voice. Hey, what are you doing?
Right.
I freaking love that so much, that image. I don't know what it is about that image. I think it's awesome.
This is my favorite. We move into the 80s.
Oh, yes.
Big, messy. Because somewhere in that last decade or two, the blow dryer was invented, believe it or not. We should have went along with the inventions of the tools along the way, or just do their separate videos. Maybe we'll do the blow dryer.
Yeah, we'll do that as a separate,
hair styling from the beginning to the end is what we should do, where we cover some of the tools that were invented along the way. Put that on Trello. But this 80s hair, this is when, at the end of the 80s is when I'm becoming a stylist. I mean, I lived through the 80s, loved the big hair, kind of growing it at my 80s hair back right now. I wish I had my pit vipers in here. But as I'm growing that hair back, I'm having so much fun with it, because I'm kind of reminiscing about the 80s and how much I loved a little bit longer hair, and how much I hate it when I'm shampooing and trying to rinse all of that shampoo out. It's like, oh my God, is the shampoo ever going to come out of all this hair? But the big hair, I mean, that was so much fun to me. Turn upside down, spray, gel, mousse, foam, push it towards the head and come up. And the higher the hair, the closer to God, we used to say, kind of joking. I mean, malls are dying. There was malls were like the new popular shopping way to do shopping centers. And it actually became part of the name of the hair for us here down south. I don't know if it was up there, but the bigger your bangs were, we used to call them mall chick bangs. Had you ever heard of that?
Why? Well, what's the reference?
Because all the chicks in the mall had big bangs. And so it was just like if you wanted to go to the mall and have big bangs like the popular girls that were just walking the mall on a Friday, Saturday night just to meet people. People cruise certain boulevards. Well, at a certain age before you can drive, parents drop you off at the mall and you just walk the mall and meet each other. And it'd usually be a movie theater in the mall or near the mall. And so you do a little shopping along the way and whatever other things were there. But we called them mall chick bangs. And I don't know if that was a national thing, if it was a southern. I grew up down south and I was just here my whole life. So I didn't know if everybody else did also. But just big, wild, messy hair, spray, scrunch, space, and just get it big. And then all the rock bands were doing big 80s hair like that too. Girls, guys, everybody.
So that's where my major inspiration came from, because that was also the punk era. And the music started getting heavier and faster, and it was just started getting really intense. Yeah, the girls, the messiest, like you're saying, the biggest, but also messiest
and
bob
frizzy.
And frizzy.
I
so sexy.
Like I think so too. It's so crazy. My wife this morning, she had curls yesterday. She slept on them, and she gets up and she goes, "Oh my God, look at my hair." I said, "So good, huh?" She goes, "No." I mean, I love that big bed hair. Like she gets up and it's like big, wild. Looks like we should live in the jungle. That. I mean, I'm sorry, but I love big, wild, messy hair.
I always has loved it when we doing a show and we got a model and we crimp her whole head and then we comb out the crimp and it blows up a little bit.
Yeah.
Oh, so freaking nice.
And sometimes I know we go a little overboard for hair shows just to wow the crowd, just to show what hair can possibly do. And most people aren't it's not going to become trendy. It's not going to be worn all the time. But you're right. Sometimes it's just a little creative, artistic release. Like, let me just do something wild and crazy and different just to see if I can. And sometimes it's just for finger hand dexterity, just to see. You'll learn things out of this. Like when Scott Cole did the Joan of Arc cut on a mannequin, he just went over there, sort of picking up hair and just cutting it anywhere. And he just did a choppy look. And sure, maybe nobody's going to wear it, but you know what? I came back from that class and somebody said, "So what have you learned lately? Have you been to any shows?" I said, "Well, you know what? We cut a bob by just from the back of the head, going in with scissors and cut the whole bob like this. Just starting high and going low. And it was almost kind of graduated, but it had all these little chop marks everywhere. And you just slowly chopped it in, and it might be a little different on each side, but you saw it almost looked like oh, look, somebody did a little bad spot on your haircut, but this was like 100 of them. And I had a couple of ladies say, "Let's try it." So for my little town, it's not that many people will do that wild, crazy stuff, but it was fun just to put a weird, wild haircut. And then a guy comes in who's a local artist, and he was having an art showing, and he said, "Bernard, I want to do something different. I am hosting the art show, and I don't want a regular haircut." I said, "Well, you know what? His name's the same as my brother's." He said, his name was Dennis DeBott. And I said, "Dennis, I just learned his haircut where I just go in and put the scissors anywhere and cut all kind of geometrical shapes on your head, and it'll look like almost like Edward Scissorhands did." He was actually better. He actually did better haircuts than but maybe when Edward was learning how to cut hair. And he said, "Let's do it." And so those kind of things, when you are just like open-minded, have a little fun with the clients that'll let you do it, those things get you recognized, especially before social media, because he was at a gathering, people like, good or bad, "Who cut your hair?" And so then I got a lot of recognition from it. So it was a lot of fun. So this was our next cut moving into the 90s.
So now we start moving into the 90s. Now, one thing about the 90s though, Bernard, in the 80s, everything was the big and the hairspray and everything, right? So then I know that one, that's Winona Ryder. And that was the pixie. No, that's a pixie haircut. So the pixie haircut, you went from one extreme to the other. You went from big hairspray, bangs and hair and perms and frizz and all that to this short, cropped, tight, almost like a guy's haircut. That became the pixie haircut.
She was so pretty that she could pull it off.
So pretty that you could pull it off. And one of the reasons why is because also from the 80s going into the 90s was the, how you call it? Like that's where foiling started becoming popularized, highlighting specific strands of hair, framing in very specific ways, getting color to blend, not being so extreme with the highlighting did get extreme, but like, instead of having punk rock, pink, red, blue hair and mohawks and stuff like that, if you were the normal average person, you had nice highlights, you had smaller blended highlights and color and all over color, and you started covering your grays and things like that. So when the Nona Ryder comes up with the pixie haircut, that was the number 2 haircut during the 90s. Still, the number 1 haircut during the 90s was still the bub. And that one was referred to as the Rachel. Do you know that reference? Does that do you remember that?
Maybe Friends?
That TV show Friends with the Jennifer, how you say, Jennifer Aniston, help me.
You're saying it perfect, right?
Aniston.
Oh no, my son. Can you say it like that?
I don't know. It's the freaking Rachel, okay? I hated. Okay, I'll tell you. I've said this before on previous lives. Jennifer Aniston and Jennifer Lopez, the two of those, J-Lo and the Rachel haircut, those two haircuts and hair colors ruled the 90s. For any woman that had long hair from shoulder to collarbone, and that same highlighting, oh dear Lord.
Well, the reason why I remember this Jennifer cut was I go into, I'm working for a new salon, that cut comes out, I figure it out, I'm styling. This is another one where you don't curl it under, you don't curl it up, you don't curl it back like the feathered look. You literally have to reverse that back feathered look and curl it forward. And getting hair to curl forward by bending your brush around, and not necessarily a round brush, but a paddle brush, and going straight down and then bending it around was just, it came so natural to me. But this is why I remember it. I was a younger stylist working at a salon, and my boss, who I looked up to and could do everything so well, he comes over to me and he goes, Bernard, have you figured out this Jennifer cut? I'm like, yes. Can you show me how to do it? And I was like, I've arrived. I'm better than the boss at something. I was so excited. Isn't it crazy? Like, I don't know, 20-something, 23, 24 years later, that is stuck in my head because it was like a milestone. It's like, I am not better at everything than he is yet, but at least I've got this one thing. It's kind of like when my kids could do something I couldn't do. I remember my son saying like, oh my God, I can do something my dad can't do. It makes you feel like I don't know.
You're so proud, just so proud.
Yeah. And so I remember that. But this is still my all-time. Now, don't tell my wife because I like her hair long and I don't want her to do this.
She'll never see this, right?
This is my no.
She'll never watch this.
This is my all-time favorite haircut.
That is a cool haircut.
I love the back. I'd go a little longer in the front, but I just love the
graduation.
To me, this was the first haircut you literally could wash and go. Like 90-something% of the style is in the cut. It's already there. You cut it like this, it's it's going to pretty much stay style. Now, you can curl it under in the back and get it stacked a little more. And that's what I liked about it. You go curl under in the back to get it to stack more and go less curl to here, and then perfectly straight on the side. And most hairdressers couldn't figure that out at first. If you're going to curl something, you curl everything. If you're going to go straight, you go straight everywhere. No, not necessarily. So this was neat because the curl was just to stack the back more. It didn't look curled. It was just to stack it because that top layer you leave kind of straight, or you could bump it under a little. But it was mostly supposed to look like a straight cut, and the curls were just to give you that fullness in the back. I don't know. This bigness here accentuated a jawline area also. So that A-line accentuated the jawline. I don't know. Something about it kind of all pointed to sexy to me.
In the early 2000s, when the Victoria Beckham cut was ruling the world, you know, what was she? Posh Spice, the Spice Girls, right? Victoria Beckham.
Emma Watson, Halle Berry, Victoria Beckham. They got all of them listed here.
So
wearing that.
But that's the one that, oh yeah, Halle Berry. That's right. She really popular. She had a really nice bob haircut.
Yeah.
The reason why Victoria Beckham stands out to me the most is because that was the make or break it moment for me to realize how important hair color plays into accenting the haircut. What are you raising your hand?
I'm sure I'm not raising my hand.
Oh,
somebody's doing some B-roll for later for content. And I'm just showing them my favorite cut ever. That's my favorite haircut ever. And she was a little late walking in the room, so I was just showing.
No, I got you. I'm like, what are you, sir? Can I say something now? I get too excited, Bernard.
The funny thing, for you guys watching and don't ever read the comments, I don't ever raise my hand because that's the only negative comment that I've ever gotten on this channel is that I talk over Eddie too often.
You do? Yes. Yeah, that's right. Yes, you do. Shame, sir.
Yeah, we talk at the same time, and yeah. I told my wife that's a normal conversation. We're supposed to talk over each other.
No, Bernard and I goof off with each other all the time. Look, what you guys got to understand is I'm actually very shy.
Oh, let them hate us.
You actually bring out my I don't even know what the word is. What's that?
I think it's a hug. I think is what you want right now.
No, but now, okay. So now that's the 2000s. That's the early 2000s, right? Now
that's the last picture I've got. You got more research. I heard that you did more than me. The overachiever. What else you got after that? That was the last cut that I had. I know you stayed up all night studying for this to impress me. So go. Now,
right? Go. No, now you start moving into the last 10 years. Right?
What's that?
Done. The last 10 years. Look at the progression of what's happened in the last 10 years, though. Especially in the last 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
That bohemian style where things started getting lazy, right? But what was considered the lazy haircut? It was the long grown out bob, and it was called the lob. So it was a long bob.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. God, I hated that word.
I hated that word too. It's a stupid word, but this is what we got. Bob. Lazy bob.
Right? I guess. I don't know. Yep.
No.
But I mean, you can't blame it. To me, it's crazy because I remember going on the streets of Bourbon Street. You know, I'm in the New Orleans area, so when people come to town, they want to see the French Quarter. Bourbon Street's a big part of it. And what was the name of that group? Gutter Punk Kids for a long time. This is where I realized that anybody could start a style. You got these. That was their title, their name, or whatever they called them, gutter punk. I don't know what that meant or where it came from. I guess they just lived on the streets, off the streets. And they were nationwide, but cities that would let them stay a little longer without kicking them out. They were all over the French Quarter, and their hair I start noticing, well, first of all, their hair's a mess. They don't have the tools to do their hair right. You know, they just let it go. They don't care, like you're saying, lazy, a lot of little lazy hairstyles. But then from these lazy hairstyles, I start seeing it in the movies and on celebrities, and people are, and I thought, oh my goodness, any group of people can start a trend. I mean, don't get it. I didn't get that one. Call me old. Maybe I'm just an old man. I didn't get it, but it became popular. And then it's our job to figure out how to reproduce some of this stuff.
Well, and then I was having during the pandemic, and then right after the pandemic, people were like, "Well, where do we go from here?" Because they were calling it the lob, and then they started calling it boho chic, which is I don't know what the hell that's supposed to even mean. Then we get the shutdown, right? So nobody's doing their hair now. Everybody grew their hair nice and long again.
Right.
Now you're coming out.
The name for roots. Look, I got a little bit of roots right in here, a little white hair
You
coming
need a
out.
touch up.
But right, a lot of people had their gray roots like grown out 4 and 6 inches, and some people stayed there. Some people grew it out.
Yeah.
I'm done, man. My attention span is over for this bob. I need to move on for the day. Say your parting words, Eddie. I can't do it anymore. You know me. I got to run. When it's done, it's done.
Well, that is our history. Now, where does the bob go from here? Where does the bob haircut go from here for this next 10 years?
It's never going away.
It's never going away.
What
So
variation, though? That's a good question.
which variation? Because here we are now to date, right? So let us know in the
Right.
comments what your best guess or what your inspiration you think which decade it's going to grab it from.
With the bob to make it new.
Yes. And thank you guys for watching. We'll catch you next week. Bernard, I'll talk to you later, buddy.